Welcome back again. And in this test drive, we're going to go through estimating an installation or design build type of project. And this time, we actually want you to follow along with the test drive. Even if you haven't built a budget or you haven't set up your item catalog, there's enough information in our sample to use that to build your own estimate. And after all, this is just a trial. Use our information to get started, play around with building an estimate, see how easy it can be. Then you can get into setting up your own stuff. So let's dive right in. To get some estimating, you're going to want to go to the left-hand side. And there's two kinds of estimates. There's standard and there's service. Standard is what you're going to want now. It's for install or design build type work. If you're going to go do something and complete it, it's a standard estimate. Now, if you want to track recurring services like mowing where you're going to go a bunch of times, that's where you're going to want to use the service estimate style. But we're going to stick to standard for this video. So we'll click on standard. And you can see there's one example standard estimate already set up for you in the sample. So you can go ahead and have a look at it. But here in the test drive, let's actually walk you through the steps to build your first standard estimate. So very first off, up to the top corner and hit the Add New button. Perfect. Now we got to pick a client. So we're going to search for the client. I'm going to look for the client I built in the CRM test drive. You can enter any part of the client's name or address or their job site name or job site address, and LMN will return some matches. Here it's found the Briar residence, so I'll click Select. That'll pick the Briar residence as the client, and over here, it'll name the estimate and pick a few other things. In this case, I might want to change the division to install. Then you'll click OK. Perfect. You've actually created your first estimate already. There's just nothing in it yet. So we'll go do that next. But you can see here I've got estimate name, got some information, got the client information on the right-hand side. I can do some overhead measurements of the site, map the site, and do a few other things that we'll cover in the estimating video, or you can read on your own in the help video. But let's just get right to the action for this test drive. We need to add some prices to this estimate. So what you're going to do is go to the Work Areas and Pricing tab. So click on that. Now, estimates are built as a total of a few subtotals. Now, maybe your job is small, it's just a quick tree planting, and it's just one subtotal. That's fine. But oftentimes, install jobs are something like a driveway, a walkway, a garden, and some irrigation. And so you kind of have four subtotals. And that's what we're going to build first. We call them in LMN work areas. And a work area is like a phase of a job. So we'll create our first phase now manually, and then we'll use a template to create our second phase. Let's start by building something pretty simple, like a garden bed. We'll go up here and we'll hit Add Work Area. So it's going to now add a work area to the estimate. We want to give it a name. I'll just call it very simply Garden, but when you're doing this for clients, you probably want to name it something a little more professional. Next, pick your cost code. We don't have to talk about this much now, but this is going to determine what revenue account this estimate ends up in accounting when you get into exporting to QuickBooks. For now, we can move on. Click OK. Great. Now you've added your garden. Now there's just no prices in it yet because we haven't added anything to it yet. What we need to do for this garden is add how many labor hours it's going to take, what equipment's going to take to build it, soil, plants, and that sort of thing. So we'll do that now. When you're editing your garden, and you can see that because my title's here and I've got nothing in on here, I want to slide over here to the Add Items and Templates button. So we'll add that. And what that's going to do is bring up the item catalog that you built in an earlier test drive. It's our labor, it's our equipment, it's our material, the list of all that stuff we looked at in the item catalog. And the reason this is handy and the reason we have an item catalog is because I don't want to price this stuff every time. I just want to say I need this crew, and I'll click the plus button. Then I'll go to the equipment tab and I'll say we need a crew truck and an install trailer. So I'll add that one. We're also going to need a mini excavator, so I'll add that one. Now I go to the materials, and I got to worry about disposal. So I'll bring that out and maybe dispose this. And I'm also going to need some soil, so I do a search for soil, and we grab some triple mix. And then the last thing I would need to grab would be plants. Now, LMN sample database doesn't include plants because geographic problems, we all use different plants based on where we're located in the continental US, but also in the world. So rather than populating your sample database with a whole bunch of plants you're never going to use, what I'm going to do here is just show you how to actually put plants in an estimate without picking the plants themselves. We'll just use a budget. Now, normally, we'd be very specific in the plants we pick, and just like we did labor and equipment, we'll grab our plants and we'll drop them in. But there is even an easier way to estimate, and sometimes it's useful, especially when we're just trying to put a quick price to a client. And we just put a material budget on that. Let's see how we do that. First, I go to material, then I'm going to go to the new button. So we'll click that. Now the material name, I'm going to call this planting budget. So what we're going to do here is establish a budget amount for all the plant material, and I'm not actually going to add the specifics. Now again, when we do a real estimate, I'd probably be picking real plants, but this is handy, and sometimes I don't have the plants when we're pricing a job. The units, we're going to put each, and the type I'll probably change to softscape. Now over here in the unit cost column, this is where we're going to put our company's cost of the plants. Let's say it's $3,500. We're going to add some shipping to that, and we're going to need to add some warranty to that as well because it's plants. And we need to build in a cost for replacing stuff that doesn't make it. Then we've got our overhead markup, that comes from your budget. And we got our profit margin, which again comes from your budget. But as you can see in this case, oftentimes you can get more than just a standard profit margin on things like plants especially. So here's where you can learn how to go set a custom profit margin, and we'll crank up the profit because we know we can get more than, say, the standard 10% on plant material. And I've set it here to 35%, so now it just about doubles the cost of the plants for the client. And this is okay for plants, typically, because the difference between wholesale and resale is really big, so we can kind of get away with it. Some other things you won't be able to get away with margins this big. Now I've set it up, and I'm going to click this button, Add to Estimate. So this isn't going to save it to my catalog like this one would, because I would probably never use this exact budget again. But it's going to add to estimate and drop it in right there. Now what you want to do is get all this stuff out of the way. You've added everything you need for your planting budget or your garden. So we're going to close this down here. Perfect. Now all you need to do is quantify everything. You've got everything added. We just figure out the quantities of everything. So let's say we say it's going to take 3 people all day to do this garden. So 3 people times 8 hours is 24 man hours. We're also going to need 1 crew truck and install trailer and 1 mini excavator. Both these are measured in days, so we're fine there. We'll need 1 disposal bin. Maybe I'll need 12 yards of soil. And then I've got my planting budget. And already, now I've priced my first garden work area. If I go to the analysis screen, you can see I've got all the numbers for that garden, the price, the cost of goods sold, the gross profit, the overhead, the break even, the net profit, and all my other calculations, all built in. And it really took us 60 seconds approximately. Well, what if the client also wants to add a patio around that garden? Let's do that, but this time let's see how a template can do this for us even faster. So we'll close that down and we'll go add another work area because we want to give the client a separate price for the garden and for the patio. So I'll go add work area here. We'll call this garden patio. Pick my cost code again as installation and hit OK. So notice we still have the garden in our estimate. Now you can't see anything because it's all hidden behind the edit button. If I hit edit again, there's all the stuff for our garden. It's still there. We just get at that by clicking edit or close. But we're going to hide all that stuff when we're working on the garden patio so that it's not confusing. Now, when you're in the garden patio, we're going to go here to add items and templates again. But this time, instead of adding each thing manually, we're going to go to the right-hand side and we're going to pick templates. And then I'm going to pick my paver patio or walkway. And just like that, everything we need to think about for a paver patio or walkway just gets dropped into our estimate. And it did that because it read it all from the template that we built earlier. Now we just got to calculate the quantities. Because your templates have production rate calculators built in, it makes that easy too. Click the calculator beside the labor hours. Say you want to do a 500 square foot patio, and it'll calculate approximately how many hours that would take. If you decide it'll be something different, like say I want to round that up to 50, I can do that as well, just by clicking no thanks, and I'll specify my own. We're going to need 2 days of a crew truck and install trailer, 2 days of a skid steer. I'm going to need 1 disposal bin. I'll need 600 square feet of landscape fabric. Now when I get to the gravel here, once again, might be a useful thing for a calculator. So if I've set it up in my template, all you need to do is click the calculator, put in 500 square feet, and it'll tell you you need 10 tons. So if you're following along with our sample templates, which you're more than welcome to do, you can see how these get used and can make estimating quick, accurate, and easy. Now you might also wonder, well, how come I can't just put in 600 square feet and everything gets populated? And that's because not everything is based on square feet. You'll see that here. As we get into spikes, that's based on linear feet. Or paving edge, it's also based on linear feet and not square feet. But we can calculate those as well, because back in the template, I set them up to be based on linear feet. Now we'll work out our polymeric sand. We'll add our pavers, and make sure when you're doing the pavers that you also specify the price. We set it up in a template with a blank paver cost and price so that you could specify it when it picks it. Over here is where I put the paver name and maybe the color. Great. Got that? Now, let's say the client doesn't want sealer. Great, we take it out. We didn't forget it, but we consciously took it out. And now there's a delivery charge in there, so I got to remember to put that in. Once I close that down, you can see now I've got two elements to this job. I've got a garden at 8,600, and I've got that patio I just built at almost 6,000. Everything's got man hours. Everything's got all the equipment and materials it needs. The analysis gives me all the breakdown that I need to look at the job and make sure I'm making money. And even if I go to the client notes for the garden patio, you can see that's all set up for you because you brought it in from the template that we built. Same with the crew notes. If I want to make sure when I send the crew out that they don't forget any of these small tools or they know how the work gets done, all that's built in my templates, that all came over. So that all I have to do now is go print, pick the report, and we'll just do the default proposal, and then I'll hit print. And when I open that, I've now got a proposal ready for the client, full of terms and conditions and pricing, even signature lines, everything I'd need to sell this job. And we just did that in about 10 minutes or less. Now, when you use our sample data, you're set up to build some quick estimates, but don't forget, it's our sample costs and our sample prices, and if you're using our sample budget, it's our sample overhead as well. But once you get yourself set up with your budget, you tweak our item catalog, and you set up your own templates, you'll be off to the races, making estimates just as easy as I just did here. And if you need some help putting together some estimates, please reach out to us. We're here, and it's free. You can reach out to us by live chat, you can book a one-on-one consultation session, or you can peruse one of our hundreds of videos to get all the details on how to build estimates for yourself. Good luck estimating, and if you want to know how to estimate service estimates, be sure to check out that test drive.